Hello everyone, my name is Karabo Mamabolo, and the topic I chose to present today is the CSS Specificity and Redundancy. I feel that these two concepts are very important and they play a very vital role in styling web pages and doing that effectively. First of all, what is CSS specificity? This refers to the rules that determine which CSS style is to be applied in an event where there's multiple conflicting styles that are present. It's also very essential that we as developers are to understand specificity to ensure that the results that we output are very predictable and consistent in styling across all the sites that we'll be working on. Now, we learned that specificity has hierarchy. Let's have a quick look at that. See what it is. Now, okay, this is how CSS is prioritized. First would be the inline styles. We'll have a look at an example a little later on, followed by IDs. IDs will be given a value of 100, and on the CSS files or style sheet, they will be signified by the hashtag in front of the name of the ID. That will be followed by classes and pseudo classes. Classes will be will have the value of 010, and they will be signified by the dots, so dot continent in the example that we'll be looking at. And pseudo files obviously have the colon. And then lastly, it will be the element selectors, which will have a value of 001. Examples of these are P's, P tags, divs, buttons, and so on. Now, let's look at the example that I have in place here, if I can get to it. All right. Now, I've preloaded this HTML and CSS. It's basically just a list of continents in the world. Each have its own ID, which is the continent's name. They all have a class component of continent. We have a heading and so on. So let's just have a look at what we're talking about. So we said that the very first preference is given to inline CSS. As you can see here, for the H1 tag, we actually put in an inline CSS there for the color of the H1 tag, and that overrode the H1 tag that we have here. So the color is supposed to be blue, but because of this inline CSS, this is not honored anymore. So to show you that, if I were to remove the star here, you'll be able to see the color changing of the H1 to blue, as you can see here. So that's priority number one. Second would be the IDs, which for the first one here, as you can see, is Africa. Africa here has been given a color of green. I've stated at the bottom using the P tag and also the why has this escaped me, that the class name of continent is supposed to have a color of black, but because of the ID being inputted, that will actually take preference. As you can see, all of this is all duplications. We'll deal with that at a later stage. I just wanted to show you what takes preference. And Lastly, following the classes and pseudo classes, we also learn, which I haven't really spoken of here, but we also learned that the other thing that would take preference would be the place of the entry on your style sheet. For example, I've made a duplication here on purpose for the South America element here. So you can see we have two IDs for South America. Colors are conflicting, supposed to be Peru, which is more relevant to South America. But I've also put it at a later stage here and assigned a color of green. And as you can see, because this came later on, it's taking preference, and the color of South America is green. Should I remove this, you'll be able to see that color changing from green to this Peru color. I never knew that Peru was a color, but there you have it. You know, this has to do with the hierarchy. It's important to actually be cognizant of the hierarchy that's assigned to these elements. All right. Now, there tends to be issues when dealing with CSS, and it's important to know how best to actually deal with these issues. Specificity conflicts can lead to unexpected styling results, and there are certain strategies that can be used to try and overcome or mitigate these problems. Some of these are either restructuring your CSS rules, as you've seen me do a bit earlier on. The other thing we can do is to use specific selectors. As you saw, one of the entries that I made there on CSS was to have the p tag and the class stated. So that way it allows you to hone in on specific things that you want to change styles of. And the other last resort that we could implement is to use the important declaration. Now, with the important declaration, it's not common practice. Actually, we actually advised not to use this on a regular basis, or try our best to not use it at all. Sorry, let me just go back. Okay, I just want to show you an example there. Maybe we can use the last example that we had here. I'll just see if I can get, let's just make this bigger. Okay. For the important declaration, let's just use the Africa as an example of how that would work. So we'll assign Africa a new color of, I don't know, let's say gold as well. You'll be able to see the name changing there from green to gold. That's basically because of where it is in the style sheet. It's placed in the style sheet. But we place important on this color here, you'll be able to see it changing back to green. But as this should be frowned upon. We shouldn't use this because that can create issues later on. So those are basically certain ways that we can deal with styling issues there, or specificity issues that we can come across. Now the next thing that I'd like to talk about is redundancy. Let's get back to that. Okay, went out of this by mistake. Okay, redundancy. So what is redundancy? Just get to the slide here. I'll continue with that. Okay, so redundancy refers to the presence of unnecessary or duplicate styles in the style sheet. It should be reduced because it can increase the file size and loading times. It also impacts on the performance of the site in a negative way. So let's just go out of this and let's just have a look at a few things there. So you would have noticed that out of all of this information, there's a lot of duplication that I've made on purpose. For example, the border, the background color, the padding, all of that can actually be reduced by removing it from each of those IDs and just simply put it under one umbrella class there, as they all use the component class and it's in a P tag. So by simply doing complete this quickly, hopefully that will update properly. Okay, just see this. There we go. You can see that that replaced all of that. So we saved ourselves a lot of lines that were put on there, and it makes our CSS files much cleaner. And yeah, we don't have to scroll through a lot. It's easier to go and amend this at a later stage. If you feel that light blue is a very awkward color, you can change it to anything else and it will update it everywhere else. Now, how do we identify redundancies? Okay, I'm grateful for this course. It actually teaches us on a regular basis how to do this. But basically, we could use tools like the browser development tools. We could use what are called linking tools. And there's also performance audit tools that can help identify these redundancies. It's also important for us to manually review CSS files for unused or duplicated styles. And this should be done on a regular basis. What do we do after we have identified these redundancies? We need to then remove or consolidate them. And yeah, we should actually do this on an ongoing basis in order for us to maintain our websites quite well. In conclusion, what I've learned as I prepared this is that it's imperative for us to understand specificity, that it helps us to ensure that we work optimally and our websites perform very well. And yeah, it also leads to us having cleaner code. And yeah, and it also helps us work very efficiently. And our CSS code would be a pleasure to read. Should you have any questions, feel free to add in Teams. Thank you till then. Goodbye.